As the introduction said, my name is Ghouze. I work at the Epicenter, which is part of UCL. Within that, there's a small team that look after EPPI Reviewer, so support, development, management of the services. I'm part of that support team and have been there for quite a few years now, so quite familiar with the software. You may have interacted with me if you've sent requests into the support address or what have you. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give a bit of background information about EPPI Reviewer and look at some of the more advanced functions within the software as well. So, bit of an outline of what we're going to look at. History, user base, who uses it, what we offer in terms of training and support, the basic principles behind the design of EPPI Reviewer, and then we'll move on to EPPI Reviewer itself and some of the more up-to-date features that we've introduced in recent years. So OpenAlex connections, living reviews, automatic updates, priority screening, large language models, and the like. So EPPI Reviewer is basically a piece of software that lets you conduct systematic reviews, all sorts of types of review, scoping, meta-analysis, thematic synthesis, and it's a piece of software that will work with you through all stages of that process. So from simple reference management, document storage, screening, coding, and then synthesizing from your data extraction. It's very flexible, so it's up to you how you use it. So you don't need to follow a particular path. There's no obligation to carry out every stage. So it can be used for very simple tasks. It can be used for whole complex scenarios of an automated living review. We've got very large reviews that have been done with EPPI Reviewer in million plus items in terms of number of references and very complex coding structures. So it can be used for most circumstances. So the history, originally it was an in-house tool, a database of references. Within UCL, the Epicenter came into existence and the tool expanded to allow multiple users to concurrently access the records. And then eventually became a fully fledged standalone piece of software offered to other users. Some of you may have used EPPI Reviewer version 4 before. That actually became an official Cochrane auto support tool. There's various other iterations of the tool as well. So NICE, National Institute for Clinical Healthcare and Excellence, use it. And we're currently now on version 6. We work with Campbell to create additional visualization and mapping tools for the outputs from EPPI Reviewer. We worked with Microsoft, what was Microsoft Academic, and has now become OpenAlex, a database, open access database of references. That's now linked into EPPI Reviewer, so that enables us to do automatic updates of reviews, evidence surveillance, and the like. And most recent development that's proved very popular is integration of large language models like ChatGPT 4, 4.1, DeepSeek, and the like. So this allows you to enter prompts as part of codes, and then the system will go away and answer those prompts looking at your references or your full text documents. So that can be quite useful. So EPPI Reviewer, as I say, was created in-house to support the methodological work conducted at the Epicenter, but is now widely used across the world and across many organizations. It's a research tool in 2 distinct senses. So it enables the production of a range of reviews and analyses, as we've said, secondary research, but it also supports the development of evidence synthesis methodologies, research about research methods. We conduct a lot of SWARs within reviews at the moment. So looking at the efficacy and the output rates of reviews using EPPI Reviewer. So there's a lot of circumstances where it may be useful to you. If you haven't used it before, this one will be very appropriate for you. Why would you use it? So we use EPPI Reviewer to conduct our own reviews. As I've said, that's basically the history, the starting point of the software. So it's actually been tested with real-world users for real-world projects. There's several reasons why you might actually use it. So one is it keeps your review process explicit and replicable. You can see the stats, what's happened, what sources were imported, what came into the review, what's been screened, or what's been coded. You can easily get numerical breakdowns for Prisma reports. You can easily produce coding reports. All those kind of things are doable within EPPI Reviewer. Number two, it enables you to work concurrently with many other people. So you can have co-reviewers accessing the same review at the same time, working on different tasks, or even working on the same task and then comparing results. There's facilities to double screen, blind screen, double code items within software. And there's additional tools to help you compare results from various reviewers and reconcile those. So there's a lot of collaboration tools to aid the review process if you are working with other people. Another major benefit of using EPPI Reviewer is you can keep all your data secure in one place. It only needs to be uploaded once each time for a particular review. And you can even share data across reviews should you wish. So once your references or full text documents are in EPPI Reviewer, anybody who has access, you've given permission to access that review. Whenever they log on, they'll see all those documents. There's no need to keep updating people, sharing files, making sure people have the latest version, or recording what refs are which. It's all in one secure place. Hand in hand with that reference management aspect of the software, you can easily update your reviews. So these could be, perhaps you come back to a topic 6 months or a year later and want to survey this scenario now. Or you may even have a living review that you're updating monthly and keeping going for a long period. So all that is possible and doable with EPPI Reviewer. And another good reason, once you've done your analysis, excuse me, your data extraction, it's very easy to create reports, interactive evidence maps, visualizations with EPPI Reviewer. We spent a lot of time working on our mapping tool, particularly with Campbell. So again, that's another tool you'll find useful. Who uses it? So we have several types of user, from individual researchers, master students, right through to large global organizations, government departments and the like. We do consultancy work and carry out our own reviews for many government departments, NGOs and the like. So Department of Health and Social Care, Department for International Development, World Health Organization, NICE, and many other universities across the world. And you're probably aware, as you're at this session, that we do a lot of work with Cochrane and Campbell, and we're a recommended tool for official Cochrane reviews. In fact, if you do work on a Cochrane review with official author status, you can actually get access to EPPI Reviewer free of charge for that review. So we've talked about why you might use it. As I've said, there's a lot of collaborative tools within it. Multiple users can access it at the same time. It can manage work assignments, reviewers in a project, tracks your progress. There's no need for you to keep separate records. You log on to your review, you'll see what you've done, what you need to do. Everything is there, laid out plainly for you. The other benefit, I'd say, a particularly attractive point, is now it's a pure web application. Any web-enabled device with a modern browser can use EPPI Reviewer. So you could use it from your phone, even tablet, laptop, desktop. We've had people screening on the commute to work. You can use it anywhere you've got a network connection on a browser, basically. There's no need to carry data around. As I said, everything is there in your review. If you are part of a group or an organization who wants to use it, we do offer very flexible site licenses. Um, there's discounts if you opt for a site license on our normal rates. So that, again, that's something that may be attractive to group users or organizations. And also it allows you to manage access and reviews yourself if you do take up a site license. Part of the additional benefits, if you do use EPPI Reviewer a lot and you start to share work with others or across an organization, you can reuse common coding tools. So the one you can see on screen at the moment was developed for health improvements in Scotland, but we've got a lot of publicly available coding tools there. So Cochrane Risk of Bias is there as a pre-formatted coding tool. So you can just import these into your reviews. And the other aspect of this is you can import your own coding tools. So if you have a particular methodology or particular process that you carry out for your reviews, you can just import your existing coding tools into another review, adapt it as you wish, and then reuse the same things. So again, that's a huge time saver, adds to your efficiency in the review process. For organizations, that can develop further. So using the same tools and using classified data sets between reviews, you can aggregate findings, build up cross-review pictures. So an example would be EEF, the Education Endowment Foundation. They produce toolkits for schools across the UK. They've got hundreds of studies across multiple reviews, and they've produced a display so you can easily access these conclusions that spread across various reviews, and schools can make use of their research. So another point I'd like to stress is our support. We take a lot of effort to provide a good support service. Partially, the flexibility of EPPI Reviewer does lead to a bit of a learning curve. So we've got a lot of resources online, supports included with your user account. Within the software itself, there's context-sensitive help. And it's got a large amount of resources online, YouTube channel with short videos covering the main functionality and what have you. We'll happily handhold you while you get used to the software, because as I say, it does take a bit of getting used to. You're not restricted to a particular path with an EPPI Reviewer, but the corollary of that is there's a lot to get to grips with. So you can see in the chat, we can put link to our help pages, our account manager, and the software itself. I'm just showing you what kind of thing we've got available online. So we've got demos, walkthroughs, videos, as I say, a YouTube channel. So all that is available online, as well as our support email address. So we've covered that EPPI Review is very flexible. So another benefit of our support team being closely knit is we work hand in hand with our developers. We can feed back what users tell us about their experience with EPPI Review. We can add new features if they become popular requests. We can improve the software. As I say, it's an end-to-end product, so many types of analysis can be done, and this will support you from initial steps in review right through to presenting your findings. And again, as I've mentioned, you can work from a very small project, even just a literature search, right up to large ongoing living reviews. Another benefit of it being an online piece of software is that all these developments and improvements to EPPI Reviewer are available once they're published. Whenever you log on to EPPI Reviewer, you're working with the latest version that we've published. So it's not simply a workflow tool. As I said, you're not forced down a particular path. You can share data, coding tools, etc. across the reviews. It's up to you how you use it. It can be quite useful having that kind of flexibility. You may have a data set from a previous review that could be used as training data for machine learning models or active learning screening in future reviews, for example. It covers a wide range of review types, as I mentioned. So you can do a standard systematic review, an umbrella review, qualitative, quantitative, look at quality assessments, produce evidence gap maps. It's all doable with EPPI Reviewer. So reference management is obviously at the core of any product like this. We have extensive tools to manage the sources within your review. You can look at details of each source that's been uploaded, administrate those sources using coding tools, save and report on search strings that were used for your review and the like. Recent tools we've added to EPPI Review to aid this are direct links via an API to Zotero, similar with OpenAlex, and a direct link to PubMed, so that encompasses Medline and the like, within EPPI Reviewer. You can easily import RIS files from other online databases. We have an online tool which converts from most common online database formats to RIS if your file isn't already in RIS format. You can directly upload full text papers, PDFs, and that's all stored with your review. The direct API connections can be very useful. So you may do a reference search on an online database or within EPPI Reviewer. You can export that reference list to Zotero, get Zotero to find all the relevant PDFs, and then just sync your references with the Zotero library and pull all those PDFs in. So there's no need to go and find each one singly, upload it to your review. That can all be done with this API interface to Zotero now. In terms of the OpenAlex tools, that can be very useful for finding related items. So there are a variety of additional searches that you can do with OpenAlex. So you can do citation chasing. You can use OpenAlex's own network graph of related items and ask it to find items related to the ones already in your review. You can ask it to do periodic updates. So automatically, approximately monthly, will run an update search, and if you subscribed in a particular review to an OpenAlex update search, it can go and find items related to the ones you set up, defined in your update search details. That's very useful, obviously, for evidence surveillance, living reviews, and the like. PubMed, there's search links directly embedded within EPPI Reviewer, so you can type in your search terms and bring in the results directly from PubMed within the review. There's no need to go to a separate database search online. Part and parcel with managing those searches is a way to look at duplicates. So we've refined our duplicate management algorithms over a long period. Obviously, duplicate finding is fuzzy. There's going to be differences in the way databases have author lists. They may even abbreviate titles. Some references may not have all the information in a particular database. With EPPI Reviewer, you can still hopefully find and automatically match most of your duplicates. We do allow you to adjust the similarity index when carrying out a duplicate check. So you can vary the leeway given to declare an item a duplicate or not. Obviously, one has to be careful with that. Sometimes things may be very similar, an annual update, a particular publication, or what have you. But this gives you the opportunity to adjust safe parameters and see the results. Part and parcel of managing those references within EPPI Reviewer is that you can easily export the results either as RIS format for use elsewhere, Excel, so you can select the fields you want to export and have that as a table or Excel spreadsheet. Basically, it's an easy way to take subsets of your references from your review. You may just want to include the items to pass on to somebody else or store in a proprietary system. So you can do all that within EPPI Reviewer. Another useful tool using EPPI Reviewer is once you've done your data extraction, your coding analysis, EPPI Reviewer allow you to produce structured reports. So these can be very simple, just quick question reports. Show me the coding from these references and this coding tool. Or we have something called configurable reports that you can set up and save the design of, and then just run them wherever you wish on updated reference sets, new references, pick subsets of the references, and they're openable and savable. So you can save them in HTML and then open them in Excel or Word for further amendment. There's also export formats in JSON. This allows you to export coding and reference details. It has come about as a way to get the information from your review, your analysis, into an evidence gap map. But obviously in JSON format, you can use that for a lot of other variety of uses, your own bespoke uses, other tools, etc. EPPI Reviewer allows you to do statistical analysis of quantitative data. Meta-analysis can be done based on an R server that's part of our server infrastructure. Again, you can export those results and the R code, allowing you to reuse it elsewhere later on. You can see an example of a map here. We will put some links in the chat to these maps and visualizations. So this is one that was done by the FCDO, looking at conflict prevention. So you can see not only does the map give you an idea of where information is, but it gives you an idea of where the gaps in information are and where you might need to do further research or commission research. Another example done by University of Exeter, just a different format, a different layout. We've also got a tool called EPPI Visualizer. Now, rather than export data, this runs directly on your review data live. So anybody that you allow can look at this online. You don't need to do anything. It's all part and parcel of EPPI Reviewer, and they can query your data. Basically, you're publishing your online database or what you want to publish online in the format of a informational dashboard or visualization of that information. So the user can specify what they want to look at, frequency table of particular coding, a 2D crosstab report, a 3D map, what have you. Here's an example of one of these visualizations. So this is a project we did in-house on COVID-19. So you can see it's very easy to get a lot of information out live. There's not a lot to do when setting this up if you've got the data there, but it makes it very easy for external people or people within your organization to look at the end result of your review, the information that's come out. We're further refining these to do bespoke results. So you can see a couple of screenshots from those here. Hopefully we'll make this available to the wider public and allow more customization as time goes on. So coming up to other useful tools, AI related and the like, that you're probably quite interested in. I've mentioned OpenAlex and the idea of living reviews and being able to update your reviews automatically. So you can see here what we do is we set off subscription to auto updates for a particular review, and we define how they run, what items are going to be used as the seed items, if you like, for that. This can bring back a lot of information, so we have tools to further refine and import those results. So you can see here I've run a classifier on the model, on the results of this. So you can see how relevant they are, the results that have come in. So we can choose to only take those that have been judged most relevant by our machine learning model. We can filter out things, so we could filter out pretty prints, stuff from certain URLs, ARXIV, for example. So there's a lot of ways to manage these results, because these can be quite large. So you want some way of making that more easy to work with. So with these kind of automatic update tools, we get the idea of living reviews. So I've said we can train machine learning models to learn the scope of what you're looking for. So new papers will be automatically added. So you're essentially doing your evidence surveillance automatically. There's no manual sort of every month going to search online databases. This will be done automatically. Given training data, so examples of your relevant items and irrelevant items, the system can then classify items according to how relevant the probability of inclusion they're going to be. So you can then filter out these results of literature surveillance automatically. So obviously that's a huge boon in creating living reviews, keeping your reviews up to date. Further to that, as well as screening your update results, you can then start to categorize them. So again, we started doing this kind of work with our COVID-19 research. So we trained the machines to start classifying the relevant records according to what category they belong to. We can then map those results. There's no human involvement. We can produce a living map of COVID-19 research without much human interaction once the systems have been trained. So there's quite a few AI features in EPPI Reviewer now. Priority screening, I'll come on to shortly. Clustering, pre-built classifiers, you sort of had those mentioned in terms of classifying items, whether they're relevant or not. And we'll come on to connection to large language models as well in this next section. So priority screening, obviously, with more and more online databases and more computing resources, the number of references that come back from search results is just growing exponentially. So priority screening can help by learning what you're looking for and then ranking your items according to how relevant they're going to be. You can then screen in order of that relevant or likely relevance, which hopefully will speed up the screening process. There's various theories, formulas for working out stopping criteria. So if you've got an ideal scenario, you may only need to screen a small portion of all your references and then find that because they've been ordered in order of likely relevance, you've got all your includes without having to work through all the items in your review. So you can see a traditional screening process. Items are scattered at random through your screening list. With priority screening, it's learning what you're looking for, and it will pull the relevant items, those shown in red, towards the beginning of the screening list. It's an active process, so it's continually learning as you screen and improving its knowledge. And obviously that gives a better result. The more training information it's got, the better it'll perform. So you can see the ideal scenario is represented by the green curve. So we're finding a lot of our includes early on in the screening process. That's then plateauing out the rate of finding includes. So we could stop when the line's starting to go flat. So that is before we've screened all our studies. So in this particular example graph, we're stopping screening at around 50%. Relatively safe in the knowledge that the remainder of the items are most likely being irrelevant. We can obviously sample those. We can carry on to the end. You still get a benefit from the screening process being speeded up. If you want to be completely rigorous, it depends on your circumstances, but you may find that you've got 95 or 99% all includes quite early on. And obviously that's a huge saving in workload. It is circumstance dependent. If you've got a very disparate set of includes, it's going to perform less well than if your includes are all fairly similar. So you may find performance benefits aren't huge, but compared to the sort of grey baseline, generally you will see some improvement through the use of priority screening, assuming you've got sufficient references. If you've only got 100, 200, there's probably little benefit setting this up, training the system. You probably might as well just screen all those few hundred items. But if you're starting to move into larger numbers, 500, 1,000, 2,000 or upwards, then the benefits can be significant. So you can see this is a real world review. Within EPPI Review, we'll get a table and chart of your screening progress. So we can see this one's performed very well. We've got the ideal curve there. So we found a lot of includes right near the start and it's plateauing out. So it's feasible. We could stop screening at around 5,000 items. Here, we've been exhausted and we've carried on to 8,000. But again, depending on your circumstances, you may think that to get an overview of an area, you'd be safe at stopping at 5,000. You've saved yourself a lot of work there. There's a few other old school tools as well within EPPI Reviewer to help screening. Auto advanced terms highlighting, so you can set terms up so ones that you're looking for, ones that you want to avoid, they can automatically be highlighted. You can use hotkeys, so you can just press a number that corresponds to the relevant code that you're applying to an item whilst you're screening or coding. So again, this makes it very quick to screen items. You're basically looking at the title abstract, pressing the relevant number, and then the system will automatically present you with the next item to screen. Related to priority screening, another useful machine learning tool we've got is binary classifiers. So we've got some pre-built ones in the software, and you can also create your own. So the one you can see on screen now, we're looking for RCTs. So the chart shows items on the far left of that bar chart are very unlikely to be RCTs. The ones at the far right are very likely to be RCTs. So if we're only looking for RCTs in this review, we could just take the items with a very high probability of being RCTs, include those, and then the rest we may want to sample a few just to check. We may find that the systems perform very well. It's very sure that these are not RCTs, so we may want to just automatically bulk exclude the items in the lower few bands. The middle ones, the system is a bit unsure. This is a good curve. There's a lot less items in the middle bands than at the extreme ends. And so we may want to manually check those. Like I say, we've got some pre-built models. So we've got a long COVID binary model, Cochrane RCT model, which is trained on a lot of Cochrane data. We can look for systematic reviews or what have you. We can also produce custom models. You can automatically administrate, apply codes to items in particular bands, search for items with particular likelihood of being relevant or not according to your model. Again, this requires some training data to produce these results, but that can be got from anywhere. So you may have data from previous review. You may manually screen a subset of your items, then use these models to classify the rest. How you do this or how you use the tool is up to you. So just the current pre-built models that we've got already built into EPPI Reviewer. Another tool that you may find useful but is possibly being superseded by large language model tools now is Lingo 3G clusters. So this will basically look at your references and it'll pull out themes, and this can be nested themes. It's up to you how you use this tool, the depth of nesting, how much detail you want to go into. As I say, it's largely been superseded by LLM related tools now. You can be a lot more specific in what you look for and the information you ask the LLM tool. Here's an example of what kind of thing we're getting out of our large language model tools. So you can see here we've used an LLM tool to establish study characteristics, study population. Some of those where you just see the bold type code name, study type, it is a human study. We've asked a Boolean question, so we're only looking for human studies. So where that characteristic is present, it will show you the code. So it's a very easy way of screening on specific criteria and also getting further information out, like a bit of background on the study characteristics or the intervention type or outcomes. We've also used York's DARE criteria with this. So you can see this particular item's passed all 5 of the York DARE criteria. You can produce reports based on these. The basic report looks quite bare. It's black and white monochrome, but you can open this in Excel, tidy it up. So you can see we've got a report of what drugs were studied here. Were they drugs of interest, the particular ones that we're looking at? So we've done some screening and some data extraction. All these results completely automated using the LLM tools within the review. So things like study characteristics, we've just asked the system to give us a brief summary of each study. So as you can imagine, this is a huge time saver and a very useful tool. There are some provisos. LLMs can be prone to hallucinations. So you'd want to validate your prompts in a small amount of test data. Generally, we evolve them. So we'll try a few iterations of our prompt development, our prompt design before settling on a final version. When we validated those against some human coding and we're happy, then you're good to go and run these on full text or title abstract items. So we've got some examples of what we've used these tools for. So we mapped literature on AI and equity using these AI tools. So there are tens of thousands of records. Bit over 6,000 ended up being included. We used ChatGPT-4 for the screening and mapping, which took a few days to process. Within EPPI Reviewer, you can use LLMs. There's a variety available within the software. You can use them on title abstract or full text. Obviously, processing a full text PDF is a lot more resource intensive and time consuming than just title abstract, but you do get more detail and probably better results in terms of some things won't be mentioned in title abstract. It's quite successful. You can see the sensitivity and specificity results came back quite well, and the classification when checked against human coding was also quite impressive. And the results were then mapped. As you can see, the background for this slide is map. So I've talked quite a lot over the slides. So I'm just going to show you EPPI Reviewer now. In the chat, we'll put a link to the actual software, the account manager where you can set up a user account. There's no personal details required really, just name, chosen username and password, etc. No financial details. Once you've opened the software, just click a review name to open it. There is a coding only user interface, which is cut down, which is useful if you're managing a review. You've got a lot of people working on it, especially if they're new to the software. It just gives them a bit of focus on what they're supposed to be doing. Within the software, we've got context sensitive online help available at the top. There's also a feedback button for suggestions and a support button. The support button will automatically create an email detailing which review you're using and what page or tab you're on. So you can fill in any other details you want to and then send it to us, and we'll know which review we're looking at and where you're encountering the problems. Like I say, the feedback is just the suggestion, so don't use that for support. And if you just do want to create an email outside the software, there's our support address, which will hopefully also appear in the chat. So when you look at EPPI Reviewer, you'll see main navigation tabs across the top. We've got Review Home, References, Reports, Search and Classify, and Collaborate. Underneath that is the main functionality of the software, to deal with references, importing items, analysing duplicates, meta-analysis, updating a review, and there's a Tero link, along with the headline figures in the review. Below that, you've got coding progress, basically an overview of what's going on in the review. So we can see we've screened some items on title abstract, some on full text. There's some admin codes there, and some additional data extraction has been done. And then to the right, you've got another few panels, which we'll come on to shortly. So everything in EPPI Reviewer runs basically on codes and references. There are a variety of code types: screening, data extraction, and then codes to administrate your review. So you might want to use an admin code to say, right, I want reviewer 1 to screen this particular batch of items, so I'll give them all a particular admin code. You can see codes as adjectives that apply to items, so that's how you'll manage your references within EPPI Reviewer. There's a variety of code types available, so as well as various coding tool types, within that you can opt to have particular code types. These basically govern what kind of information you can enter. You can have a checkbox. You may want to enter your own comments, statistical data, so outcome and intervention comparison numbers. So, as I said, these codes can be quite complex. They can store free text data, be simple tick box options, or even statistical and numerical data. To get your items into a review, it's very easy to import your references, very easy to manage sources within your review. You'll see a list as you bring sources in via the sources panel. Beyond that, you can manage those particular sources. So here you see, if you click the manage source button, you'll see a list of your sources, search string. You can enter details about it, so search string that was applied, when it was done, and what have you. And obviously you want to manage duplicates if you've got multiple sources. After the Review Home tab, the next one along is the References tab, where you'll see the current list of references and the basic bibliographic detail. The columns are seen here. You can adjust according to what you want to show. So you may want to show authors, journal, etc. Each reference, you can then go and look at the detail, apply codes, look at any accompanying full text document or what have you. As I said, you can manage your references with the codes. So on the right here, we've got the code tree. So we can opt to show items with a particular code. We can assign a code to a particular set of items or what have you. And then we can report on that, all from the References tab. There's a couple of quick, obvious standard formats there under the Reference tab. Under the Reports tab, the next one along, there's some further report formats available. So you can get a frequency report, the distribution of items across a code. So you might want to be doing your Prisma diagram. Why were items excluded? Again, EPPI Reviewer can do all this automatically for you. You can export these to Excel. You can do a two-dimensional frequency report, what we call a cross-tab report. So here we're looking at conditions and weight loss drugs and the relationship between those in this particular cross-tab. And finally, the other type of report is a configure report. These are very useful. You can set them up according to your particular design and then save that design. You can run them again whenever you want with fresh sets of data. And the final tab when you're navigating around EPPI Reviewer is the Collaborate tab. So you can set up work assignments for reviewers here, see what you've started, what you've been allocated, and what remains to be done. You can set these work assignments up for any particular task. So screening, data extraction, finding PDFs or what have you. You can see on the Review Home tab, you can easily go to the My Work panel, which shows just your assignments. So it's very easy to see what you've got to do in a particular review. And the progress within those. So looking here, we can see what each person has done overall and whether that coding has been completed or not. The other panel you'll see on the Review Home page is the My Reviews panel. So this simply brings up a list of all your reviews, allowing you to easily switch between them. And we've covered the sources panel already. So I'll just give you a quick look at navigating around a review. So hopefully you can see my EPPI Reviewer screen now. So as I say, we've got these main navigation tabs across the top. One thing I didn't touch on was the search and classify search. So there's a lot of ways of searching and pulling out particular subsets of references here. The other useful thing that you'll find under the search and classify tab is access to models. So I've built a model already in this demonstration review based on some screening data. And then I can apply that. I can classify other items with that model, which is what I've prepared here. So if we look at this classification, you can see a large proportion of these are irrelevant, but it's good in that it's cut out a lot of work. So we've got several thousand items here, and it's reduced those that are likely to be relevant according to its training data. So we can just look at these and sample those and perhaps check a few in these lower bands and just bulk exclude those. On the right hand side, you can see the codes that I mentioned earlier. So you can hide or show these codes with the green codes tab on the very far right. You can see the screening criteria that we've represented in various codes. Blue admin codes here to show who does what and how we manage the items. There's some more admin codes here to show which items we've found full text form, which we're still looking for. There's a pre-created risk of bias coding tool here. So now the format of report, if you use this coding tool, EPPI Reviewer can then produce a color-coded risk of bias report for you. And then finally, we've got our LLM coding tool here. So we've got study characteristics, study type, this is a human study, the DARE criteria. And if you look at the very bottom, we can see the code description for this. So that's basically the prompt that we're passing to the LLM when we're running these items across the LLM and getting this data out. So if I pick an item now, so let's say I want to run this item now. So that's all we need to do basically. We can obviously run that on batches of items rather than single items at a time, should we so wish. And that'll produce results similar to those I showed you earlier. So basically, we've got our study characteristics, our DARE criteria, and then other questions about each particular study. So we can see these results are in now. So if I look at the coding record for this particular item, the LLM has produced these answers all automatically. So this was completely without any human interaction beyond creating the initial prompts. It's not done particularly well on the DARE criteria, but I've got the basic background details of these, whether it was a study on humans or not, what the study population was, etc. So you can see that's quite a useful tool. But obviously, as I say, you'll want to use it with some qualification or caution. It's not the be all and end all, and certainly won't replace human interaction or very detailed data extraction for a while yet, at least not without some validation and cross-checking. So I think I've covered the main navigation points around user interface. You have things on the main home screen. You can edit your account, create a review, edit the current review here. We've touched on these 3 panels here. I think we've just about covered the main navigation around EPPI Reviewer itself.
And we're also approaching the end of the session.
Yeah, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. If there's any other things that have come up or anybody wants to go over.
Yeah, well, we'll end at the hour as planned, but yeah, I would actually stop you earlier, but since I've seen that all of the questions have been actually, I would say, well answered in chat, I basically thought it's okay for you to keep on until the end of the hour. Perhaps just one more question as a kind of to end this session. If someone wants to go more in depth in terms of training, perhaps in-person training, workshops, hands-on workshops, what would you suggest?
Okay. The first thing I'd say is do check the help pages and information that we've got online, because there's a lot of videos. There's a complete intro. There's a tutorial. So there's a lot of resources online. But in terms of organisations or small groups, we can organise training sessions. Quite often, it's quite useful for both sides because it'll prevent a lot of one-off support queries. So yeah, we're quite amenable to that. If it's a formal training session for a whole day or what have you, we do charge for things like that, but we can do short, tailored interactions via Team or Zoom online, should people want it.